First Contact and Reckoning. The Valkyrie Dominion had conquered 17 star systems in the last cycle alone. Their vast armada of crystalline ships, vessels that absorbed energy and redirected it as devastating weapons, had become the stuff of legends and nightmares across the Orion Arm. No civilization had withstood their expansion for more than 3 standard rotations. Most surrendered upon first contact, their sensor arrays detecting the overwhelming power signature of the Dominion fleet and quickly calculating the futility of resistance. Admiral Drezek Kazan stood on the command deck of the Infinite Convergence, his flagship and pride of the Dominion's contact fleet. His scaled skin rippled with anticipation as he studied the holographic projection of their newest target, the blue-green world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star in a previously unexplored sector. Preliminary scans complete, Admiral, reported First Tactician Vex, her multifaceted eyes blinking in sequence as she processed the incoming data. Life signs abundant. Technological level appears to be mid-development stage 3. Limited orbital infrastructure, primitive communication satellites, no detection of quantum shielding or hyperspace capabilities. Admiral Kaizen's mouthparts clicked together in what passed for a smile among the Valkyrie. Stage 3 civilizations were his favorite conquests, developed enough to understand the hopelessness of their situation, yet not advanced enough to pose any meaningful threat. Initiate first contact protocol, he ordered. Standard dominance display. Let's show these primitives the futility of resistance before they even consider it. The Dominion fleet of 12 massive warships shifted into a precise geometric formation that would appear on primitive scanning systems as an overwhelming show of force. Energy rippled across their crystalline hulls as power was diverted to visual display systems designed to instill terror. Broadcasting subjugation message on all frequencies, Admiral Vex confirmed. The message was simple and had been used countless times before. Submit or be destroyed. Most species chose submission. Those who didn't soon wished they had. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean on Earth, in a facility unknown to 99.9% of humanity, Director Elise Chen watched the alien fleet materialize at the edge of their solar system. Instead of panic, her expression remained impassive, almost expectant. Right on schedule, she murmured, glancing at her team of specialists. Operation Firewall is now active. Maintain observation protocols. For over 50 years, humanity had been preparing for this moment. Not out of paranoia, but out of mathematical certainty. The Drake equation had always suggested intelligent life was abundant in the galaxy. The Fermi paradox asked why no one had made contact. The answer, humanity had long suspected, was not encouraging. The universe was full of predators. So they had prepared in secret. The squabbling nations, the climate crisis, the apparent technological limitations, all carefully constructed illusions to mask humanity's true capabilities, a cosmic camouflage designed to make Earth appear vulnerable when it was anything but. Their broadcasting director announced communications specialist Maya Wang. Standard conquest rhetoric, surrender or destruction. The usual cosmic bully approach. Director Chen nodded. Let's respond according to Protocol 7. Give them exactly what they expect. At first, the Valkyrie fleet received Earth's response almost immediately. It appeared to be a panicked, disorganized collection of transmissions from various global powers, each trying to understand what was happening, some pleading for peace, others threatening primitive nuclear retaliation. Admiral Kaizen's skin rippled with amusement. Typical Stage 3 response. They're fractured, disorganized. Tactical, prepare a demonstration strike on their largest military installation. Nothing that would compromise the resource value of the planet, just enough to ensure compliance. Target acquired. Admiral. Their primitive defenses call it Pentagon. Strike package ready. Execute. The Infinite Convergence surged with power as it channeled energy through its crystalline structure, forming a concentrated beam of destruction capable of vaporizing several square kilometers of terrain. The weapon discharge, a blinding lance of energy slicing through Earth's atmosphere toward its target. It never arrived. The beam simply disappeared halfway to the surface. There was no explosion, no impact, nothing. It was as if the attack had been swallowed by empty space. Weapon malfunction, Kazin demanded, his amusement instantly replaced by confusion. Negative, Admiral, replied the weapons officer, mandibles clicking nervously. Energy signature indicates successful discharge and trajectory. It simply vanished. Before Kaizen could respond, the fleet's sensors detected movement. Hundreds of objects rising from Earth's surface, too small to be conventional spacecraft, too numerous to track individually. Unknown objects approaching, Vex reported, her voice tight with sudden concern. They appear to be microsatellites. Defensive drones. Configuration unknown. In the underwater command center, Director Chen allowed herself a small smile. Activate Phase 1 defense grid. Minimal response. Demonstration parameters only. The swarm of objects. Thousands of human-made quantum-entangled defense platforms disguised as ordinary satellites surrounded the Dominion fleet in perfect formation. Each one was small, seemingly insignificant, but collectively they formed a network of computational power that could rewrite local physics. Admiral Kazin watched with growing unease as the primitive-looking objects positioned themselves around his fleet. They weren't attacking, merely observing. Their power signatures were minimal, almost undetectable. This is unusual behavior for a Stage 3, he muttered. Tactical. Analyze those platforms. What are they? He never finished his sentence as a single ping of communication cut across all Dominion frequencies. A simple text message in perfect Valkyrie script. Your weapons technology relies on energy redirection through crystalline matrices. We find this approach inefficient. The message was followed by a demonstration. One of the smallest human defense platforms pulsed briefly, and the crystalline hull of the relentless void. The Dominion's second-largest warship simply stopped being crystalline. Its molecular structure rearranged itself into something dull and inert, its energy collection systems rendered useless. It didn't explode. It didn't fracture. It simply became something else, something non-functional, in less than 3 seconds. Panic erupted across the Dominion fleet. The impossible had happened. A Stage 3 civilization had neutralized one of their most powerful warships with less effort than it would take a Valkyrie to exhale. Full defensive protocols. Kazin shouted, his composure shattered. Energy shields maximum. Prepare for immediate. Another ping. Another message. Defensive energy shields rely on the same principle. Also inefficient. We recommend reconsidering your approach to this encounter. The defensive shields of 3 more Dominion ships simply winked out of existence, not overwhelmed by force, not hacked or disrupted. Their fundamental operating principles had been rewritten at the quantum level. In the underwater command center, the atmosphere remained calm, clinical. This wasn't a battle. It was a controlled experiment with a predetermined outcome. Phase 1 demonstration complete, reported Defense Systems Analyst Dr. Rahul Patel. Their fleet is in disarray. 8 ships attempting emergency hyperdrive activation. 3 have lost all primary systems. 1 appears to be sending what looks like a distress signal. Director Chen nodded. Send the final message, then allow the functional ships to retreat. We want survivors to report what they've seen here. Admiral Kazin stared at the viewscreen in horror as half his fleet drifted powerless, their crystalline structures transformed into inert matter. No weapons, no propulsion, no communications. 4,000 Valkyrie warriors stranded in ships that were little more than oddly shaped rocks. The final message appeared across all remaining Dominion systems. The Valkyrie Dominion has been monitored for 27 of your cycles. Your expansion pattern is unsustainable, and your technological approach stagnant. Earth is not available for conquest. We suggest you use this encounter as an opportunity for cultural reflection. The surviving ships may leave. Do not return without peaceful intentions. The message was signed simply, humanity. Kazan, his scales now pale with shock, gave the only order he could. Retreat. Maximum hyperdrive. Return to Dominion space immediately. As the surviving ships fled, Kazan struggled to comprehend what had happened. They had encountered not a primitive civilization, but something far more advanced, something that had been watching them, studying them. Something that had allowed them to believe they were the predators when they had actually been the prey all along. And the most terrifying realization of all, Earth had barely exerted itself. Those thousands of platforms had neutralized half the contact fleet without firing what could be described as a single shot. It wasn't a battle. It was barely even a demonstration. When he reported this to the Supreme Council, the Dominion would face an unprecedented question. What do you do when you discover you're not the apex predator after all? In the Underwater Command Center, Director Chen was already moving to Phase 2 preparations. The Valkyrie would return, of course. Predators always did. But next time, they would bring their full force, and humanity would be ready to show them what a real demonstration looked like. The Empire's realization. The Grand Council chamber of the Valkyrie Dominion had not seen such chaos in 700 cycles. War leaders, tacticians, and political directors from across 17 star systems crowded the vast crystalline amphitheater, their voices rising in a cacophony of anger, fear, and disbelief. Supreme Director Kazai Vorn, whose lineage had guided the Dominion's expansion for 3 generations, raised all 4 of his upper limbs for silence. The chamber gradually quieted, though the tension remained palpable. Admiral Kazan's report has been verified, Vorn announced, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. The encounter with the species known as humans resulted in the neutralization of 6 warships and the loss of 4,000 warriors without a single Dominion weapon finding its target. A low hiss of dismay rippled through the assembly. The technologies demonstrated by this Earth were beyond our current understanding, Vorn continued. They appear to have developed means to manipulate matter at the quantum level with a precision that allowed them to fundamentally alter the molecular structure of our crystalline hulls. War Director Thelos slammed his ceremonial staff against the floor. Impossible. No Stage 3 civilization could develop such capabilities without our detection. Our observation networks cover the entire sector. And yet they did, Vorn replied coldly. More concerning is the claim that they have been monitoring our expansion for 27 cycles. This suggests a level of stealth technology or observational capability that exceeds our own. The implications hung heavy in the air. For centuries, the Valkyrie had operated under the certainty that they were the most advanced species in their region of space. Each new civilization they encountered fell into predictable development stages, none approaching the Dominion's technological sophistication. Until now. We cannot allow this challenge to stand, declared Thelos, to murmurs of agreement. I propose we assemble the Grand Armée. 100,000 warriors, 200 capital ships. We will crush this Earth and take their technology for our own. Vorn's scales shifted in a pattern indicating cautious agreement. The Grand Armada will be assembled, but we must approach this with strategic wisdom. These humans have revealed only a fraction of their capabilities. We must prepare for the possibility that they possess weapons or defenses beyond what Admiral Kazan witnessed. The preparations took a full cycle. The Grand Armada gathered, the largest military force the Dominion had ever assembled. Capital ships, destroyers, assault carriers, a fleet designed not just to conquer, but to overwhelm any possible defense through sheer numbers. Admiral Kazan, despite the shame of his retreat, was appointed tactical commander. No one else had directly observed the humans' capabilities, and the Dominion would need every advantage. Supreme Director, Kazan said during the final War Council, I must emphasize again the unusual nature of the human response. They could have destroyed our entire fleet, yet they chose to neutralize only half and allow the rest to retreat. This behavior suggests either overwhelming confidence or some strategic purpose we do not yet understand. Vorn's facial scales contracted in an expression of dismissal. Perhaps they simply exhausted their capabilities in that demonstration. Perhaps they hoped to avoid our retaliation through a show of force. Regardless, they will soon face the full might of the Dominion. No civilization can stand against the Grand Armada. The journey to Earth took 17 rotations. During that time, Dominion scouts reported unusual activity throughout the sector. Ships of unknown design were observed traveling at high speed toward the Earth system. Communications intercepted from nearby star systems suggested some kind of alliance or mutual defense protocol had been activated. They're gathering allies, Kazan reported, studying the intelligence. Species from at least 7 nearby systems are sending ships to Earth. Vorn dismissed these concerns. Minor species, barely at stage 2 development. Their primitive vessels will add nothing of significance to Earth's defense. But Admiral Kazan wasn't convinced. Something about the pattern felt wrong, orchestrated. As if they knew we were coming, he realized suddenly. Not just suspected, knew. The timing of these movements, the precision of their coordination. When the Grand Armada finally arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system, they encountered not a single planet with makeshift defenses, but an entire system transformed into an integrated defensive network. The space between planets bristled with structures of clearly varied design, some human, others of distinctly alien origin. Jupiter's massive gravity well had been harnessed somehow, creating distortions in space that forced the Armada to approach along predictable vectors. The asteroid belt had been rearranged into a complex lattice-like structure that seemed to serve both defensive and computational purposes. And at the center of it all, Earth itself glowed with energy signatures unlike anything the Dominion had encountered. In a hidden chamber beneath the surface of Mars, now serving as the forward command center for humanity's defense, Director Chen met with representatives from 12 different species. Each had suffered from Valkyrie expansion. Each had been secretly contacted by humanity over the past decades. Each had contributed technology, resources, or knowledge to the Earth Alliance. The Valkyrie Grand Armada has arrived, Chen announced to the gathered representatives. 213 capital ships, approximately 100,000 warriors, exactly as our intelligence predicted. Zaruk, the insectoid ambassador from Proxima Centauri, chittered softly. They bring their full might, as expected. Will your defenses hold, Director? Chen's expression remained calm. The defenses will hold, Ambassador. But more importantly, this encounter will reshape the Valkyrie understanding of their place in the galaxy. Operation Paradigm Shift is ready. Aboard the Dominion flagship Ultimate Dominance, Supreme Director Vorn surveyed the unexpected defense array with growing unease. This was not the isolated primitive world they had expected. This was something else entirely. Commence the attack, he ordered, pushing aside his doubts. All ships, full offensive deployment. The Grand Armada surged forward, weapons systems charging, attack formations spreading across the solar system in patterns that had broken planetary defenses countless times before. They never got the chance to fire. Space itself seemed to fold. There was no other way to describe it. Sections of vacuum between Dominion ships simply creased, as if an invisible hand were bending the fabric of reality. Ships that had been kilometers apart suddenly occupied the same space, not colliding, but merging in ways that defied physical understanding, becoming impossible amalgamations of crystal and metal. 40 capital ships were lost in the first moment of the assault. What is happening? Vorn demanded, his composure finally shattering as the view screen showed his mighty armada being reshaped like clay in the hands of an invisible sculptor. Unknown technology, Kazan replied, his voice hollow. It appears they're manipulating space-time itself. Our ships aren't being destroyed. They're being reconfigured. The second wave of the human response came from the transformed asteroid belt. Each reorganized rock suddenly glowed with energy, and thousands of beams connected in a vast web that enveloped the remaining Dominion ships. Within this network, the laws of physics seemed optional. Weapons wouldn't fire. Engines ran backward. Communication systems broadcast the private thoughts of the crew instead of commands. It wasn't warfare as the Valkyrie understood it. It was something approaching cosmic humor, a demonstration not just of superior technology, but of a fundamentally more advanced understanding of how reality functioned. A communication request flashed across the ultimate dominance's systems. With trembling limbs, Vorn authorized the connection. Director Chen's face appeared on the main view screen. Flanked by representatives of a dozen species, the Dominion had considered insignificant. Supreme Director Vorn, Chen greeted him calmly. On behalf of the Earth Alliance and our partners throughout this sector, I'm authorized to accept your surrender. Vorn's scales flushed with rage and humiliation. You dare. You cannot possibly. Your remaining 97 ships are currently experiencing a localized rewriting of physical constants. Chen interrupted. This effect is temporary and controllable. It can be reversed, leaving your vessels intact. Or, she let the implication hang in the air. Admiral Kazin stepped forward. Supreme Director, I advise immediate acceptance of terms. What we are witnessing, this is not merely superior technology. They are operating on principles our science doesn't even recognize. Vorn stared at the view screen, at the human woman and her alien allies, and finally saw the truth. The Valkyrie hadn't stumbled upon a primitive world ripe for conquest. They had encountered a species that had been waiting, watching, preparing, a species that had already surpassed them, and had simply chosen to remain unnoticed until provoked. What are your terms? He asked, his voice barely audible. Chen's expression remained neutral. The Valkyrie Dominion will immediately cease all expansionist activities. You will withdraw to your original home system and begin the process of offering independence to all conquered worlds. A delegation from the Earth Alliance will oversee this transition. And what prevents us from rebuilding and returning once you've withdrawn? Asked Vorn, a final spark of defiance flickering. For the first time, Chen smiled. It was not a reassuring expression. Supreme Director, what you've witnessed today represents approximately 8% of our defensive capabilities. The technologies demonstrated were primarily contributed by species you considered primitives, species who hid their true development from you, guided by Earth's example. She gestured to the representatives beside her. The galaxy is not what you thought it was, Director Vorn. The predator-prey relationship you assumed existed has been an illusion. Earth didn't just develop defenses. We created a network, an alliance of species united against expansionist empires like yours. The truth crashed down upon Vorn with devastating finality. The Dominion wasn't at the apex of galactic civilization. They were simply the most aggressive of the middle-tier species, allowed to continue their expansion only because truly advanced civilizations hadn't considered them worth the effort to stop. Until they had threatened Earth. We accept your terms, Vorn said finally. As the defeated remnants of the Grand Armada limped back toward Dominion space, Admiral Kazin stood alone on the observation deck. The realization that had broken Vorn's spirit had instead ignited a strange hope in Kaizen's mind. The universe was larger, more complex, and more wondrous than the Dominion had ever imagined. And somehow, against all probability, the species that had finally shown them this truth had done so without destroying them utterly, had offered them a path forward that didn't end in extinction. That wasn't even their full force. He whispered to himself, watching the stars. Not even close. And for the first time in his life, Admiral Kazin found himself grateful for a defeat, for it had opened his eyes to a universe far more fascinating than the one he had thought he understood. On Earth, as the Alliance celebration began, Director Chen slipped away to a quiet balcony overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The weight of the past decades, the secrecy, the preparations, the careful orchestration, finally lifted from her shoulders. Humanity had revealed itself to the galaxy not as conquerors, not even primarily as warriors, but as architects of a new order. They had built not an empire but a network, not through subjugation, but through shared purpose. The stars above no longer seemed distant and cold, but filled with potential allies and wonders yet to be discovered. The age of hiding was over. The age of exploration, true exploration, not conquest, could finally begin. And somewhere out there, other empires would soon learn what the Valkyrie now knew. When humanity finally steps onto the galactic stage, it does so not as a stumbling newcomer, but as a force that has been patiently waiting in the wings, preparing for its moment to transform everything.